Detective Ryan Wallace had always believed he was untouchable, an experienced veteran of the force who knew exactly how to bend the truth to serve his own interests. For years, he had manipulated situations, twisted facts, and walked away without consequence. But this time, he had pushed things too far, and he had no idea that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down. It all began with what should have been a routine traffic stop. Malcolm Hayes, a bright college-bound teenager, was simply driving home after picking up groceries for his grandmother. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't swerving. He wasn't breaking any laws. Or so he thought. But when Wallace's flashing lights appeared in his rearview mirror, Malcolm's heart pounded. He quickly pulled over, rolling down his window with the respect his mother had instilled in him. Wallace strode up to the car, his face expressionless, his voice cold. "You ran a stop sign," he stated flatly. Malcolm frowned, genuinely confused. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't think I did." Before he could finish, Wallace yanked the door open and grabbed him. It happened so fast. A sharp gasp left Malcolm's lips as he was ripped from the car, slammed onto the unforgiving pavement, the weight of Wallace's knee pressing painfully into his back. "You think you can talk back to me?" Wallace hissed, his voice dripping with authority and contempt. "You people never learn." Malcolm's chest burned as he struggled for air, his pulse hammering in his ears. "Please, I didn't do anything." His voice wavered, a mix of fear and desperation. But Wallace wasn't listening. Wallace never listened. And then the final betrayal. With a practiced hand, Wallace reached into his pocket, retrieved a small bag of drugs, and discreetly dropped it onto the back seat. Just like that, Malcolm's future was stolen. Another easy arrest. Another tick on Wallace's record. Another step toward a promotion. Or so he thought. What Wallace didn't realize. A passing driver had seen it all. More than that, their dashcam had captured everything. Every unnecessary act of violence. Every lie. Every abuse of power. And soon, the world would see it, too. Within the hour, Malcolm's mother, Vanessa Hayes, was at the police station. Her son, the boy she had raised to be respectful, hard-working, and law-abiding, was sitting in a holding cell, falsely accused. Rage burned in her chest as she faced Wallace head-on. "Officer, my son doesn't do drugs," she said, her voice firm, unwavering. She would not back down. Wallace leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, lips curling into a smirk. That's what every mother says. Vanessa's hands trembled, not with fear, but with pure, unfiltered fury. "Then show me the body cam footage," she challenged, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Wallace's smirk deepened. Battery died. A convenient excuse. Too convenient. Meanwhile, in the holding cell, Malcolm sat with his head resting against the cold wall. His wrists throbbed from the too tight cuffs. Bruises darkened his arms. He kept replaying the moment in his mind, over and over again, searching for the exact second his life had spiraled into chaos. Then an interruption. "I have footage." The words sliced through the tension in the station like lightning. All eyes turned to see an older man stepping forward. James Holloway, a retired school principal. With steady hands, he placed a USB drive on the counter. "I saw what happened, and so did my dashcam." For the first time, Wallace's confidence wavered. The station fell into a thick, suffocating silence. Other officers exchanged glances, some unreadable, others uneasy. One younger officer shifted in his seat, fidgeting nervously. It was one thing to stand by a fellow cop. It was another to ignore undeniable proof. The weight of justice was shifting. Days later, the courtroom was packed. The case had gained national attention. Reporters lined the back of the room. Malcolm sat beside his lawyer, his back straight, his chin lifted. He was bruised, shaken, but not broken. Across from him, Wallace. He sat rigidly, beads of sweat forming at his temples. The prosecutor wasted no time. "Officer Wallace, did you have probable cause to search Malcolm Hayes' vehicle?" Wallace cleared his throat. "Yes." The suspect was behaving erratically. The prosecutor arched an eyebrow. "Erratically? Or did he simply question you?" Wallace shifted in his seat, straightening his tie. He was uncooperative, The prosecutor smirked. "Let's see the footage." The courtroom held its breath as the video played. Every brutal second. Wallace dragging Malcolm from his car. His words sharp and cruel. The moment crystal clear when he discreetly planted the bag of drugs. Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge's jaw tightened. Vanessa, sitting in the front row, closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer. Wallace's lawyer leapt to object, but it was too late. The truth was undeniable. Malcolm clenched his fists. He wanted to scream, to demand justice, to ask why, but he didn't. Instead, he sat still, his mother's hand resting atop his own. "Justice will come," she whispered. Judge Rebecca Caldwell exhaled heavily, her piercing gaze locking onto Wallace. "You were meant to protect and serve, not manipulate and destroy," she stated firmly. "Not only did you assault an innocent young man, but you falsified evidence to ruin his future. This is beyond disgraceful." Wallace's mouth went dry. His hands clenched into fists beneath the table. "How many others have suffered because of your lies, Officer Wallace?" the judge demanded. He opened his mouth, but no words came, because there was nothing to say, nothing to justify the destruction he had caused. "You are hereby convicted of police misconduct, tampering with evidence, and perjury," the judge declared, her voice carrying the weight of justice. "Your sentence will be 10 years in prison with no possibility of early release." For a brief moment, silence. And then, applause erupted. Reporters scrambled to take notes. Activists cheered. Justice, true justice, had prevailed. Vanessa clutched Malcolm's hand, tears spilling freely down her cheeks. Relief, vindication. As for Wallace, the one smug detective now sat frozen, his face pale. Officers approached him, cuffs in hand. "This isn't fair," he muttered under his breath. One of the younger officers, the same one who had hesitated in the station, leaned down and whispered, "Fair? You wouldn't know fair if it slapped you in the face." And with that, Wallace was led away, his hands shackled in the same cuffs he had so carelessly slapped onto others. For the first time, he felt powerless. For the first time, the system had worked the way it was meant to,